PMAD in space. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Let's put our hands together to welcome him. Also inviting our eminent keynote speaker, Dr. Rachit Bhatia, SSA Applications Engineer, Leolabs Inc. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We also have the privilege of inviting eminent speakers onto the dais. I invite Mr. Sireesh Pallikonda, Director Business Development, Skyroot Aerospace. Warm welcome. I invite Mr. Darshan Parikh, Senior Vice President, Head of Marine and Facultative Reinsurance at Marsh and McLennan Companies. Warm welcome. Also inviting Mr. Kunal Lalwani, Vice President at Aon India Insurance Brokers. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, the topic for the session is insurance and liability coverage for space business. Time duration is approximately 1 hour 15 minutes. And I now hand over to our distinguished moderator, Dr. P.K. Jain, to kindly carry forward the proceedings of this session, beginning with your opening remarks, sir. Over to you.
Very good afternoon to all of you. It is a post-lunch session, always a very difficult session. But the topic is very new, and I'm sure that it would excite all of you. And generally, we don't see this topic subject in most of the conferences. And so you will have the very different aspects to the risk management in the space sector. So in this particular session, we would try to cover all the aspects related to the risk management and liability, including the nuances of the insurances, different types of insurances, what generally is the process followed, what type of the premiums ranges are there, what is the space situational awareness, and so on. So let me begin with is a short presentation on the space situational awareness by Dr. Rachit Bhatia, who is from the Leolabs. May I invite Dr. Rachit to give us a brief on the space situational awareness, and then we will follow with our interactive session. The all question and answers on the risk management and liability. Dr. Bhatia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Jain, for introducing me. Hi, I'm Rachit Bhatia, and I'm from Leolabs. I am here to introduce you to Leolabs if you are not aware about us till now, and also to present our space insurance and collision hazard tool that we have launched recently. So I will dive directly into the problem, which we are well aware of since this is last day and last session. So hopefully you are already aware about the second space race, which is ongoing, and the rise of LEO, which is dominating the future of space. Now, important thing that I have found missing when talking to people here which is astonishing. We talk about space, which is not a homogeneous domain. There are multiple sub-regions and subdomains like LEO, GEO, and low Earth orbit is what is making this growth in space, fostering this growth in space recently with the launch of large constellations, etc. So most of the commercial space that we are seeing in recent years is in low Earth orbit, and that is why we are entirely focused on low Earth orbit. The biggest problem in low Earth orbit is data. There's a data deficit problem which Leolabs is inclined to solve. There's a 95% portion of catastrophic collision risk not handled by legacy system, and that is why Leolabs is providing a scalable solution which can be used by this growth in space economy and these large constellations, and by regulators and policymakers to decide how to frame their policies and how to operate in space. Leolabs has a radar network. We build and operate our own ground-based radars. We are currently operating 6 radars, 4 radar sites, which are listed on the chart, and we have 4 more under construction and 4 more in planning. So the essence is that ground sensors, especially radars, are very well suited for tracking objects in low Earth orbit. The reason for this is the large field of view, the easier deployment, and the dynamics which operate in low Earth orbit. Low Earth orbit, the satellites are buzzing past each other really quickly. It's a very high relative velocity compared to geobelt, which is low relative velocity. So everything plays out very fast in low Earth orbit, which is the key for continuous monitoring and surveillance, which only radars can guarantee. And that is why ground-based radars are here to stay and provide this reason to fill up the data deficit problem. They are a unique solution to this unique problem. So as I said, our radar systems have been designed to make sure that they are automated and they can be scaled rapidly to solve the problem which we are facing. We are planning to detect, we are already detecting 10 centimeter objects and cataloging them, and we are planning to detect and catalog sub 10 centimeter objects soon. So this will provide a good context of the entire problem, what is there going on in low Earth orbit. And we are not just generating data, we are ensuring that we generate a reliable data that can be used in operations. And that is why we are making sure that we are transparent and we provide system metrics to our customers in relation to the data that they are receiving and the operations that they need to undertake. To provide an architecture diagram of how our system works is we have radars set up on the ground, and when an object passes overhead, it passes through the static beam generated by our radars, and we gather measurements, range and Doppler measurements, that is fed into our data processing system, and we use it to do the processing and detect events that are happening in real time, which is then being provided to our customers through various access methods like APIs and user interface. So the system has been designed and developed such that it can be used operationally. These are some of the statistics, the numbers that are showing how much data that is being created by our system right now, and how it is being used to create insights and create analytical solutions for our customers. The system metric page is available on our website, and it is publicly available. It provides a very good information about what is the latency that is happening real time on our system, and what is the accuracy and precision that we are talking about. It is a method to hold ourselves accountable and to provide insight to our customers as to how our system is producing insights real time, and they will be able to use it. My role in Leolabs is primarily to analyze the data and provide insights. Hence, we are looking at statistical collision risk in low Earth orbit. The way it works is we are generating a lot of data, what matters at the end of the day is there any pattern that we are seeing? Because this is a big data problem, right? So we want to make sure that we look at what is the statistical risk and is it aligning with the empirical risk that we are seeing as we are processing the data in real time. So statistical risk is very helpful because statistical analysis and statistical risk assessment can help us generate predictions for future, as well as help in policy making and help regulators. And that is why we are not only looking at the data real time, we generate CDM alerts, conjunction data messages for our customers, which they can use operationally and decide whether to maneuver, evade a particular object which is on collision path to them, or stay put. And it is, in the end, a decision that they have to make on a daily basis, because every time they maneuver, they are expanding their fuel. So it's an economical problem that they face every day. With statistical risk, we are combining probability of collision, which is being calculated by using these conjunction data messages, and looking at how big the object is, how massive the object is, and use it to determine the risk. By determining the risk, we are ensuring that this metric can be tied back to the economy, the economic problem that operators are facing on a daily basis. So what insights have we generated up till now? I want to dwell on this chart a little bit. We have analyzed about 260,000 CDMs, events to be specific, in first 6 months of 2022. And these are all high-risk events which an operator will generally maneuver for. And we have seen that 60% involve an operational satellite. So it's a space traffic management problem. However, it is also 30% involve a fragment from 2 recent ASAT tests being done by China and Russia. So it's also a space debris management problem. The 1,000 events that we have analyzed have missed distance of less than 100 meters. And this is happening on a regular basis, and these are mostly non-operational objects which are Cold War era legacy. And I will share it on the next slide, why space debris management is more important than space traffic management. Because all these large constellations, when they are launching, they are operating very efficiently because their business depends on it. However, what is lacking right now, what is not being acted upon, is the space debris management problem. All of these rocket bodies, which are up at 850 kilometer, which cannot evade or maneuver, and they have the most debris generation potential. So here, on this chart, we can, this is a tool, by the way, conjunction mapping tool, and it is showing top 40 conjunctions that we have seen, and how there is this peak between 700 and 1,000 kilometer. So we are looking at it on a consistent basis and seeing what are the top 40 most risky objects. This is top 50 most risky objects. This is from Dan McKnight, who is my boss, and he has been doing this for quite a while, and he has listed original top 50, which he did a few years ago, and new top 50. And we can see clearly that 78% of objects, which are top 50 most risky objects, were launched before 2001. So it's a problem which is a legacy problem, right? Nothing can be done, nothing has been done up till now about that, so that needs to be solved. Where are these top 50 objects located? At which altitude? We can see it in this chart, and we can see how SL-16 rocket bodies from Russia are dominant in that 850 to 900 kilometer region, which are, by the way, as big as a small bus, a school bus. So those are big rocket bodies just whirling around the Earth and can collide with each other and can create a lot more debris. What are the most likely collision events that can happen empirically? So we have looked into it, and we have looking at the empirical and statistical analysis, we have seen that these are the most likely events that can happen if we look at the risk perspective, the probability of collision, how close they are, and how big they are. So we are already seeing worst case scenarios in between 8,000 and 900 kilometer between SL-14 and CZ-2 rocket bodies, and then moderate scenarios where it's not that big of an object, but they are still close and moderately big, and then also a very big object and then a small fragment, because that also causes more debris. Finally, this is the tool that we have launched recently, and I'm providing you a sneak peek into how it looks. So here you can see that we can provide inputs, the satellite characteristics can be inputted, which you want to analyze. It's a very interactive tool, and it is for the first time that anyone who is interested in knowing what is the collision hazard can, in low Earth orbit, can analyze it using the real data, which is being updated on a bi-weekly basis. We update this tool on a bi-weekly basis, and we are doing it more frequently, and we provide these insights based on the inputs that the user are entering. And we are already partnering with AXA, which is a space insurance company, and they're using this tool for the insurance purposes. Once the user has inputted it, the user can get insights about collision avoidance burden, how much does a probability of collision is there for one satellite, how much is it for full constellation, whatever number that they have inputted, and how it looks from the perspective of different object types at different altitudes. All of these parameters are considered in this tool, and also what inclination this constellation is going at, is being built at. So all of those parameters are considered, and we use kinetic theory of gases, Poisson distribution to simulate the debris population, and we also add some additional events, which I was talking about. What are the most likely events, so that the person who is designing or ensuring these constellations can get insight about, okay, what happens if this most likely event happens in the future? How will that impact the constellation? So they can get insight about that as well. So this is the summary page, and I'm just showing how it will look like if I'm building a constellation at 800 kilometer circular, 53-degree inclination, 20 satellites. Where should I put it? Or where should I put it at 800 kilometer? No, that's the most risky neighborhood. So don't put a constellation at 800 kilometer. So that is the kind of insight that you will be getting if you're using this tool. So if you are planning to build a constellation, or you're planning to launch a satellite, you can deduce, okay, I'm concerned about space debris problem, but first of all, I should know what is the environment in low Earth orbit, and how is it changing on an everyday basis. And that data is being given by Leolabs, and you can use our tool to deduce how to design your constellation. Now, that was all known risk. A major part of this conjunction risk is unknown risk, the sub-10 centimeter objects, which no one is tracking right now. Leolabs will be able to track it because we have designed our radars with that in mind, we want to track small debris, what we call LNT, lethal non-trackable. It will soon be trackable, lethal trackable. And if we divide those sub 10 centimeter objects into two categories, 4 to 10 centimeter and below 4 centimeter, then you can see those yellow and green curves. Those are dominating. Those covered entire graph what was shown previously, because those are 10 times the number of what objects are already up there that we are tracking. So that is the difference between the population size of known and unknown. And we are trying to catalog those unknown objects. Finally, I want to show that we are not just building the tool, we are also providing user support options. So when you're using the tool, you can use our help button to know what everything looks like and how to navigate it. And in conclusion, I will just repeat, second space race has amplified the data deficit problem. The constellation and new space sectors are victims of legacy debris problem, and space debris management is even more urgent than the space traffic management. That is why Leolabs ground-based radars are here to provide and enable continuous mapping of low Earth orbit, which can be used to provide a variety of analytical assessment solutions for not just space operators, but also regulatory and insurance segments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rachit, for that insight into the spatial awareness. It was quite interesting, and especially it was quite scary also at the same time. The way the collision probability and then the data which you have presented. Now, I will quickly go through some of the aspects of the risk management and liability in the space sector, which will set the tone for further discussion. And now I have the dual role. Here I have, of course, as a moderator, I will be moderating the interaction, but at the same time, in space, I also handle the authorization activity. So I would like to cover here some of the authorization activity related to the risk management in India, which we are considering, and then we will go for the interaction. So first thing, of course, about in space, I think most of the people now aware that in space was formed as a part of the government initiative to open up the space sector for the private industry. In October 2021, the InSpace was formed, and it has the four major roles. It role as a promoter, basically to do the industry, academia, and international and public outreach activities. It also has a role of enabler, where the InSpace is supposed to nurture and support the startups, and also enable the access to ISRO facilities as well as the technology which is available with ISRO for the usage of the non-government entities. And also it also supports the space ecosystem for the non-government entities by creating our own technical center, manufacturing cluster, which could be used by the non-government entities. And we also enable the investor to connect to the Indian industry and then attract the investment and then the joint ventures and so on. As a role of the authorizer, we authorize the various space activities in the country, by the non-government entities, and in space acts as a single window system for the private industry. As a supervisor, we of course do the hand-holding guidance and the end-to-end project monitoring, whatever the projects which are undertaken by the non-government entities. So this was the quick on the in space. Now let us come to the risk management through insurance. This is what is our more or less the topic of the day. There are two types of insurance. The one is, we call it first party insurance, and the other one is the third party insurance. In the first party insurance, again, in the space we have the two types of activity majorly, satellite and related to the launch vehicle. When it comes to the satellite, generally the risk can be covered right from the end to end, right from the manufacturing of the satellite till the ignition of the launch. That's what we call it for the satellite. And so there are different types of insurance product which I have tried to list down here. Transit and pre-ignition insurance, which is also some people called it PLEE, pre-launch extra expenses, which basically covers the direct physical loss of the satellite while in the manufacturing, or it is in the transit to the launch vehicle or to the assembly site, or during the integration till the lift off, till the ignition of the launch. And the second type of insurance is the launch insurance, which basically covers the launch vehicle failure, including any performance deficiency in the launch. And the third insurance is called Launch Plus, or some people called it in-orbit insurance after the launch, when the satellite is in orbit and whatever eventuality it happens to the satellite. Now there are different varieties, and of course our distinguished panel will speak on that. Like some of the insurances are done by the, are provided by the launch operator itself to its customers. Like in terms of the free relaunch, some people call it launch risk guarantee, like Aerospace tells it and all, depending on the failure of the launch and all. The other type of insurance is called third party insurance. And this is again very important from the regulatory point of view, because and this originates from the obligations by the Outer Space Treaty and Liability Convention. And you know that even Government of India is signatory to these treaties which you are seeing on the screen, and they are called Outer Space Treaties. And the important point here is the Liability Convention 1972. I have taken as it is the sentences where it says the launching state shall be absolutely liable. Morning we had a session just before lunch on the, so I will not dwell upon that, and where the distinguished lawyers were sitting, and then they were talking about the absolutely liability and the fault-based liability. And this is what basically is concerning with the liability arises due to any damages caused to the third party by any space object of a launching state. And the dangerous thing, or whatever you say, is a launching state could be the state to which the launch vehicle belongs, or to which the satellite belongs, or even the place where from the launch is taking place. So this is again has to be dealt with very carefully. So basically, excuse me, the third party liability, how do you cover? And especially when the quantum of the liability on the state is unlimited. There is no definition and all that thing, it could be unlimited theoretically. And whether this space object or space activities is carried out by the government or the non-government private entities, the liability lies with the state. And that is the reason worldwide the practice is that whenever any activities is permitted to by the non-government entities, a sort of financial guarantee or the insurance is sought from them to cover some part of the liability. Of course, you cannot ask for the insurance or guarantee for unlimited amount. So there is always some upper limit which is being set the Y, and you can see here on the screen. Some of the countries go for some method which is a probabilistic method, where they try to calculate the probability of the damage, or probability of the accident, or probability of the risk by the space object, and depending upon that they calculate the amount of insurance, and apart from that they set the maximum limit, so that beyond that limit, if the probability or the insurance amount comes, then also there would be a cap. And beyond the insurance amount, the state takes the liability. And some of the countries like France and Japan, there is a hard limit. And more or less, if you see the amount is more or less same everywhere. And for this is with respect to the launch vehicle operations. And when it comes to the satellite operators, generally the practice is that the satellite operators are exempted from this insurance and all, considering the very, very low risk in orbit, and especially seeing that the convention says it is a fault-based the liability, and it is very difficult to prove also the whose fault it is. Morning session again we heard details on those things also. So, but still some of the countries like France and UK, they still insist or take the guarantee or insurance even from the satellite operator. Now, this is my last slide, because I want to spend more time on the interaction. But this is what in India now we are considering right now. Our policy framework and guidelines are under formulation. As you know that now the activities by the non-government entities have just started in India. So there is a need to now have our own policy framework and guidelines. And here also we are envisaging that we will be seeking third-party insurance, which will be maintained by the non-government entity. And of course, like is the worldwide practice, the IADC guideline on space debris mitigation has to be followed by both satellite operator as well as launch vehicle operators. And still we are debating now whether satellite operators can be exempted, like most of the countries do, for the requirement of maintaining the insurance. For launch vehicle operators, what could be the best method? Is it the hard limit or soft limit? If it is a soft limit or probabilistic limit, could we use the maximum probable loss method? Some of the different methods are there. This is also being considered. Excuse me. So, and then when it comes to the cap, what could be the cap? Is it 500 crore could be any adequate? If you see again the what even other countries are doing. The insurance period, what could be the typical insurance period? Because again the premium depends upon the insurance period also. And that we cannot ask for every type of launch, the insurance period, a fixed insurance period. Suppose there is a sounding rocket or the suborbital launch, where the launch itself is taking place, is not going up to the even space. Probably you don't have to take really a 1 year or 2 year type of 6 months type of thing. But again, that some of the places we have seen that where the launch vehicle stages itself are used as a experimental platform, a stabilized platform, where the launch stages are generally will be in the orbit for 6 to 8 months time. Like our own PSLV, India PSLV stage 4, we provide it to the various customers for carrying out the experiments in space. So that insurance period could be, whether it could be varied and all. Another important point is that what could be the claim period. So the claim period of course can be there even after the lapse of the policy, provided of course the event or damage occurs during the insurance period. But how long we can allow. So this is another aspect which we are considering on this point. So this is what right now we are thinking, and with that now I will move over to our interactive session, and we are very eager to hear the views of our distinguished panelists. So first I would request each one of you, if you can shortly, briefly introduce yourself, your company, and provide your initial views on the risk management in the space sector, liability, insurance, and whichever way you feel which is appropriate for this particular forum and audience. So should I start with Mr. Lalwani, Kunal Lalwani from Aeon Insurance?
Hi. Hello. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kunal from Aeon India. Basically, I look after the reinsurance class of business since almost 15 years. Aeon ISB, we call it as an insurance space brokers, is a part of a commercial risk solutions, which includes about 19 experts, various backgrounds, insurance, satellite, engineering, contract finance. And also to note that the 1/3 of the members are aerospace engineers who are focusing on, the designing the insurance requirements, the financing, how exactly the design market formulas, etc. is to be loaded on this. We have a team for wording specific because as everybody knows, the insurance is basically on the wordings. So we take care of the wordings, how it has been drafted, what are the client requirements, various contracts. We study the contracts. So there's a legal contract team who takes care of all these things. We are also a broker for ASB and Thycom in Asia. That's about our company.
Yeah, thank you, Kunal. And now I would request Darshan from Marsh.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, SIA, for this lovely opportunity for us to come and present ourselves. So, as Dr. Jain has introduced, I'm Darshan Parekh. I look after marine aviation and reinsurance in Marsh. Just to give you a quick brief about Marsh, Marsh is a part of the Marsh and McLellan Group, which has 4 sister companies altogether. A couple of them are into strategy and consulting, which is Oliver Wyman and Mercer, which most of you would be aware about it. And then the 2 companies on the risk and consulting, which is Marsh and Guy Carpenter. So it's a Fortune 500 company listed in New York Stock Exchange. We have been in India for almost since the privatization happened. So we have been present since 2003. It's a 150-year-old company, and Marsh specializes into insurance and risk management. So just to quickly give you a brief on that, we have got around 40 specialist people all across the globe only doing space insurance, and these consist of engineers, lawyers, as well as claim specialists, because it's all good to have a good policy, but when a claim comes in, you require someone to stand beside you to take you through all the claim settlements as well. So that is a part of this. In terms of quickly on the risk management, I would like to touch a couple of things. As a role of a consultant, our role is more to do not only just get you a policy which can cover it and make your claim payment, but actually to look at risk management, and that's being one of our key topics. So what obviously Dr. Bhatia mentioned about it, some of the things which they are working with the insurers, this is something which is equally important in order to understand the risk methodology, creating a risk register to identify what could go wrong and what could be its consequences. So likelihood and consequences is something which we really study before we present it to our clients as well. Also, at the same time, looking at contracts and technical reviews, that is something very important, because when you are submitting a presentation to an underwriter who doesn't understand whole about space, so your job becomes much more important that you create a story and send it across to the insurer so that he understands, and for him is only he's putting his capacity, which is his money, which is blocking it for a certain period of time. So it's our responsibility as brokers to make this story as easy as possible and as attractive so that it becomes much better for our risk and a good pricing as well. Also, as mentioned by Kunal, we do coverage designs as well to look at the coverages, which is important, what are there. And at the same time, the most important is the insurance placement. We all know that the markets are hardening right now because of geopolitical situations. So it's important that you have a good engaging partner who can work with you throughout and do it. So just to summarize, we have a Mars Space project team, which has been present for over decades, kind of a thing. We have been insuring Indian space risks from last 40 years, And recently, the Diwali Dhamaka was ensured by us as well. So it's a big honor to be here and being part of this. So thank you, everyone, and look forward to questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Darshan. So this panel is really, excuse me, consists of all the stakeholders. Now we have heard the views from the insurers, basically who provide the insurance to cover the risk in the space sector. And now we have, of course, the service provider. The Leolabs. We heard Dr. Bhatia, and now we have the user also from Skyroot, which are in the launch business. And now I would request Sireesh to introduce yourself and provide your views on this subject.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Sireesh. I lead the business development at Skyroot Aerospace, and for the people who don't know about Skyroot, so we are the India's leading private space launch vehicle company, and we are developing launch vehicles from a class of 300 kilograms to 815 kilograms, which can take to the low Earth orbit. And currently, we are more than 210 people team, and we've been growing very fast. And we demonstrated our technology with different engines. That is, we testified our solid motors, liquid engine, as well as cryogenic engine, which would be going into our launch vehicles. We are scheduled for launch of our launch vehicles in mid of next year. And as Dr. Jain has mentioned, it is mandatory for the launch vehicles to have insurance by law. And also, it is not just for the launch vehicle also, but the satellite or the spacecrafts which would be going along with the launch vehicles need to be covered during this launch process. And the philosophy at our company is to provide affordable, reliable, and on-demand launch services. And if we have to provide these services, we need to identify seamless and smooth processes, okay, where we can complete the whole insurance thing quite fast, because we need to get the regulatory approvals from the respective agencies. So we need to ensure that we identify the right insurer who can insure not only just our launch vehicles but also the satellite operators, so that it becomes a seamless process for everyone. Yeah, probably I will speak in detail like the process what we are dealing with the insurers and everything, and looking forward to the questions.
Thank you, Sireesh. Rachit, my first question will be start from you. Of course, today you had done wonderful presentation, and now most of us now know about some idea about the space situational awareness, the identification of the object, cataloging of the object, tracking, monitoring, the collision avoidance, and proximity analysis, and also on. So we can see that, yes, there is a linkage, some linkage to the risk management and the insurance and all. Can you further elaborate that what type of linkage exactly, precisely, some more elaborate if you can make it, how this is the space situational awareness, or how your company is really providing the value addition to the risk management?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be speaking here. And that's a very, very good question, because I was thinking about it just now, that when we are talking about insurance, there are knowns and unknowns. So you mentioned rightly that there are different probabilistic based method and maximum cap method. And then there's also about satellite operators are exempted, because when the policy was formed, the thought was that the overall risk in orbit is very minimal. That is changing. The LEO dynamic, the environment is dynamic and is changing very fast. So that is to be taken into consideration. And when we are talking about low Earth orbit, we have to take into consideration, and when we are talking about the environment, we have to take into consideration how the astrodynamics impact the problem, because at the end of the day, you cannot ignore the physics of the problem. You have to take into account, and I'm sorry, I have physics background, so I will put it into perspective. But that is where what I think of. And soon what I can see is with this data being plugged into the system, we will have those unknowns converted into knowns, which can be used to assess the risk as well as take it into account, so that the volatility in the current space insurance market can be reduced and those margins can be increased. So that is the first step, and that is the linkage. And it is not just the data that will solve it. It is a multi-step process. We will first generate the data. Next, we are analyzing the data. Third, we will verify the data. And once everyone knows what is going on in the environment, you can take appropriate actions. So there is a closed loop system that is required that will make sure that this system is sustainable, and that is how I think the linkage will happen. So very soon, the last point is, very soon, what I think space insurance will be very similar to auto insurance, or just any other normal health insurance, medical insurance that we take on a day-to-day basis, because all of those the parameters involved in those environments are understood, and that is what we are trying to do here.
Yeah, thank you, Rachit. Basically, now you are quantifying the risk. That's all basically what you say when you are making unknown to the known. Very interesting. Next question would be to Darshan, to you. What are the different types of risk? Of course, some of the risk I try to cover, but maybe you can throw more light on what are different types of risk and different types of insurance product which are generally available in the market.
Right. Thank you. So yeah, you've covered most of those things. So typically what we do is whenever we look at space as a risk, we have to divide it into two parts. So one is the assets, which we talk about it, similar to the one of first party. And then there is the liabilities, which we look at it. So typically in the assets, you will get three types of covers, which is the starting of the satellite getting fixed up at the launch vehicle side. So the manufacturing, that's where the risk will start. So from that, we look at a property or a fire risk cover, because the things which can go wrong during that point of time is that. Thereafter, if the satellite needs to go to some site for testing purposes, then that could be picked up within the transit period as well. So we cover under the marine cargo transit inland policy. Thereafter, once it goes to the final launch site, till that is also a part of the transit policy. So this, from manufacturing to the tail end transit, all that gets covered within the local capacity. So that is something which doesn't require a reinsurance support. But however, then the next part which starts is a launch. And that is where I think the biggest challenges comes in, because as this is a niche risk as of now, as rightly said by Dr. Bhatia right now. Maybe later on it becomes very easy. But this is, insurance is almost the third largest cost for any of you guys who are doing this. So you can imagine that it's a high ticket, high exposure premium kind of a thing. So things can go wrong. And when we typically look at it from that perspective, the launch risk becomes quite important. And that is where the whole major coverage or the major premium is assigned. Thereafter, as you mentioned, Launch Plus, we call it in orbit or something similar, which is still allows to configure the satellite, and thereafter an annual cover can be provided for in orbit for a period of time kind of a thing. And that can be reviewed every year till the time you want to have the cover. So it purely depends on that perspective. And when I move on to the liability side, as you rightly said, there is the strict and the compulsory liability, the two regimes which we know, the outer space treaties and sorry, I'm forgetting the other one, Liability Convention 1972. So both of those do talk about overall, all the countries are contributing to it. And I was speaking with NISL CMD yesterday, and he said that we will be also coming out with it, which you have really pointed out right now. So because that is something which is going to be important overall for the space development perspective. It's not only just to protect, but it's a long-term sustainability which we are looking at it. So that kind of a limit, 80 million all across, is a standard limit all across the world, which most of the countries are subscribing to, kind of a thing. So that could be the other part of the risk, which is the liability part. And that sums up the overall risk associated. The covers which will be available will be an all-risk cover, which will be giving you a full benefit of literally like performance guarantees can also be covered under that policy, kind of a thing, and all the standard covers. Very minimal exclusions are there. But the only thing which I would like to do is that it's always better to consult your insurance provider, service provider, or intermediary, so he can take you through all the risk in details, because some things obviously will come with a cost. It's not a freebie. So whether you require that, you don't require, it's a cost-benefit analysis which one needs to do before opting for one. But yes, all the covers are available in the market as of now, and it is very important that we take up insurance for all of these things. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Darshan. I especially for this useful message that we have to be very careful. Whatever is required, only you should take. But if I am a satellite operator, certainly I should go for the all-risk cover, so that I don't have to worry now, right from the manufacturing of the satellite to the in-orbit performance.
Absolutely.
I can take my satellite is insured throughout the period.
Absolutely. And because you have a history, then automatically it allows you to give. If it's fairly a new one, then at best the insurers might provide you a total loss cover only, because of no history and not having enough information. But you have the likes of the OneWebs and all the others who have a past history behind them, automatically helps them to get better coverage.
Kunal, can you just explain that generally what is the process? Because I know that when I myself was doing some of the insurance for our own satellite when I was in ISRO, what exactly is the process? It's a lengthy process. So right from the beginning, if I am a satellite operator or I am a launch operator, what is the process of insuring? And generally, what is the timeline for different types of insurance? How much time it takes to take the policy on our for the insuring?
Sure, thank you. Yes, as you have rightly said, sir, it's a lengthy process. It's basically, if you see a typical process, let me first explain you the process, and then I can explain you why that timeline is required. A typical process for a launching and in orbit that we call as L+1 year, we split it into 3 parts. Okay, the design, the market, and it comes the place. So what happens is in the design stage is we usually do the analysis of the risk. The allocation of the risk is there, the contract terms are there, regulatory requirements, the contract review. These all things are studied in detail during the design stage. Once we complete the analysis of all the contracts that has been signed, what are the regulatory requirements, only then we can plan for the next stage, that we go into the market stage. Now, market stage is nothing but all the contracts that we have reviewed, we put it in front of the reinsurers. As the market currently in India is very new for space, majority of the insurance companies do not have their own capacities, that is the net retentions what we talk. All these things are only reinsurance driven. So it's very important for us to go ahead into the market stage where we actually speak with the reinsurers who are reinsuring all these things. So during the market stage, the preparation of the satellite, the launch technicals, the launch service providers, the first flight informations, all these things are discussed. In fact, market stage is a very crucial stage for insurance designing, because this is a stage where the actual product, that what insurance is required for, is being discussed with the market. So basically, market stage is actually a very critical stage. Once all these things are discussed, then we go into the placement stage. Now, what is placement stage? Placement stage is a roadshow. Usually a roadshow is done with the client who is taking the policy, who is the cedent, and with the markets. During a roadshow, a basic presentation is done explaining what are the coverages. The initially first 2 stages what we have done is presented in a presentation form, and it has been explained on a roadshow basis, wherein the reinsurers are there, all the informations are there. A policy wordings, a proper insurance policy wordings has been designed during this stage, and question answers are being answered. Like, in case if there are any technical, all the parties to it have clearly understood the coverages requirement, all these things are designed. Once this is done, a slip and other documentation comes into the place. So all these process, basically minimum time requirement is 6 months, but we have seen that some of the operators are in discussing for 12 months also. But the minimum time for a launch that we require for a high capacity broadband is minimum 6 months that we look at. But when we talk about the third party liability insurance, well, I don't see such a big timeline is required. We can complete the entire process in less than 2 months for only third party, because in third party, there are certain standard set of conditions that have been offered. There are no special loss loads to be applied over there. There are no special wordings to be designed. There are no operations to be designed in the third party. So basically only third party, about 2 months is required.
Yeah, but when we talk about the third party, of course, again, it depends upon the heritage, especially if some new startup is coming up for the initial launches and all. Probably, certainly your underwriters and your technical experts would be very keen to know their design details, their risk analysis, the probability analysis. Probably that might be taking time as compared to the normal heritage proven vehicles. Is it so?
Yes, sir, absolutely correct. Because see, what happens in, basically as I told in third party, the wordings, the requirements are already designed. There are not specific requirements on specific insurance coverages that we need to provide to them. So those discussions do not take place in only a third party liability. But when a person requires launch plus 1 year, a lot of more information is required than compared to a basic third party liability. So that is the reason about 2 months. But yes, even for a basic third party, a basic information is required to analyze the risk, to understand what are the liabilities or where can insurance come into the place.
Yeah, thank you. Now let us switch over to...
So just wanted to add a little bit onto it. So typically, as you said, there is one account which we are working, which is going to plan for launch in 2025. We've already started working on it. So what he rightly said, it's a good timeline because it depends on the market cycle as well. How are we in the hard cycle? Are we in the soft cycle? Makes a big difference. So if you have got all your contracts, that's why we said we as consultants or brokers, we don't come only at the placement stage. We have to start, you need to engage us as a partner at the earlier stage so that we can provide you inputs, because as Mr. Bhatia has this kind of model which is there, we've got a lot of data which has been done over the last 40 years odd. So we have got a lot of things which we can advise you in terms of contractually, in technical presentation and how things are do. So it's better we start as early as possible, and that is what I could summarize.
Yeah, it's a very useful information. So let us switch over to Sireesh. Now, of course, now you are making the launch vehicles now, and some of the launch vehicles, your launches, maybe shortly you are about to launch. Now, how do you plan to have the risk management and the liability coverage? What are your plans?
From the startup perspective, we started looking into the insurance quite long back, like almost 1.5 years back. And we've been discussing with various players, okay, to understand how the whole insurance and the liability thing works under this industry. So we can still see that it is quite new, okay. Not many of the brokers were able to address most of our questions in last 1 year, but now it is slowly getting matured, and thanks to you, okay. And apart from that, for the third party, which is like mandatory, as Kunal mentioned, though it is, it can be, the process can be done in 2 months, but the kind of information what they required with respect to the qualifications or the testings what we have done and everything, we need to know well in advance so that we can have them documented properly, and we should be in a position to provide them when it is necessary. And in addition to that, we have to file all these things again with the INSPEC, the regulatory authority, to get the permissions and everything. So moving forward, like the spacecraft also would be there. Okay, they also have to file their insurance and everything, and they can opt for a different insurer than what the launch vehicle is going for. And when the spacecraft is taking a different insurer and the launch vehicle, if they are going for a different insurer, the processing time from the regulatory authority would be time consuming, and it would affect the whole, the contract process. Okay, so that need to be minimized. Okay, and for that we need to come up with probably various models. And the other important thing is, like, with respect to the insurance for the launch vehicles, it is quite difficult to get. Okay, when for the maiden launches and everything. Yeah, and it's quite risky, and we've been facing a lot of challenge there. Okay, at an premium rates of 15%. Okay, or even more, it is quite difficult. Probably, yeah, you can develop something where you can support us in that direction.
Darshan, that is very scary. 15% and all, now he's talking about the premium. And you also said previously that nothing comes free, and you have to be very careful when you select the type of insurance. Whatever is required only you should take. So what are the factors where the premium depends, actually, the insurance and all? What are the factors which we should consider, or what would be your message or advice to the your customers here, users?
So I think, as rightly hit it on a nail right now, as I said, insurance for space being a niche sector and it's a high ticket premium is because the number of launches which has happened over the past has not been that much. So there's not much money gone into the kitty. And thereafter, if the money is still in the kitty, if claims like 2019, the Vega failure or the China failure, can wipe up the money for the underwriter for over the years, kind of a thing. So there are a lot of factors, as is rightly said by Mr. Sireesh as well, that first, if it's a history, the heritage, we need to know about it. But if you don't have someone who's coming blank for the first time, then it becomes much more difficult. And typically your first 1 or 2 flights would have been uninsured, literally, because the market is not keen on it, because one, they don't know about it. So we, as roles, as I said, as a broker, one of the factors would be to present it again to the market in a way that at least it gives you a premium. So 15%, good enough. Sometimes you might have to pay double than that also for those things. But once that, so like very good example of SpaceX. When SpaceX started, initially they never got any insurance. But thereafter, once they had a couple of successful launches, suddenly the pricing become a bit better. And as you go along, it brings it down, kind of a thing. So one factor is your history, which makes it part. The second is about the launch vehicle as well. We need to know the histories. We need to know the technical specifications. Same goes with the satellite manufacturers as well. We need to know the components, how good they are. Because what we are talking about is something which is going up in the orbit, which has got temperatures ranging from -270 degrees to +270 degrees. Does the component has the capability to weather that thing, kind of a thing? These are the things which is really driving the premiums as well. Plus, one of the important things which I mentioned earlier as well is the cycle. Because 2004 to 2019, if you ask me, was a good, 2012 to be honest, was a good time for the insurers. They made good money, it was a profitable business, but thereafter there have been cases of claims which have come in, and 2019 was the worst year in terms of it, where it wiped out the, I think the total premium for that year would be 450 million odd or 500 million, and the claims were in tune of 750 million. So that wiped off the whole money out of it. Thereafter, 2021 has been a sort of a profitable year, you can say. Not many claims up to 300 million, but still the premiums were good, but not many launches. And then we started 2022 on a good note that it will come, but then thereafter we had the geopolitical situation. And what happens? Your major capacity provider, which was Soyuz, which is the one launchers, and what OneWeb also went through and changes happened, that took away capacity as well as all the reinsurers out of it. So the moment things like this happen, that is not, it's more of an external, not in your control, but that would also drive your premium. So you could see premiums now again shooting up, and it will just go on. But then at the same time, like, it's a good situation like for NSIL with GSL V3A Mark III taking up such a big payload up, kind of a thing. Now that's become a history because they never did a commercial one. So now it's a good history, first history, successful. then your pricing can be dominated. And that's where we as brokers come in and we project ourselves in such a way that we make a story, we give them, the underwriters, what he wants to listen out so that your pricing can be done at a better stage. So 5-6 takeaways, which you talked about, is the history, your launch vehicle, provider's history, satellite manufacturer, the cycle which we are in, and the total sum insured as well, because we need to build capacity for it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree, because I still remember even in ISRO, even satellite itself, we have paid 13 to 14% of
that was a
premium
huge one.
at one point of time, the INSAT initial series, but subsequently it was reduced to 6, 7, 8% also.
Yes, yes.
And of course, as you rightly said, it depends on the hard cycle and soft cycle, period. So
this also is equally important, as Sir rightly said. So if you bring the underwriters to your place, explain them, let them have the feel of the thing, it automatically brings them the confidence, rather than having via Zoom, because I know now it's open up everything. We need to bring, they love to travel, so get them involved so that you get a better deal as well.
Kunal, maybe one last question to you, because now we are running short of time. Is there any specificities of the space insurance, especially for the Indian projects or Indian context?
See, basically, space and launch insurance is a very niche market and a very new market for Indian insurance companies also. They do not have their own capacities, as I told earlier. They are totally depending upon the reinsurers. Whatever is the reinsurance capacity, based on that, they can proceed ahead. So the expertise of the reinsurers is what is basically driving the Indian insurance market in today's time. The markets for such risk will develop definitely, and the local, as it develops and the local insurance companies issue such policies, they will have their own net retentions in place. Once the retentions and stuff are in place, only then we can expect certain changes in terms of rates, because as Darshan told, the reinsurance markets are hard right now because of the crisis that we are going through. And there's actually a chance that, earlier space market and aviation market were two different markets. Subsequently, space and aviation got into one for insurance point of view, where the capacities got reduced. So for specificities, what I feel is that reinsurers, insured needs to look at it actually at the financial health. It's very important for the startups and companies to look at the companies who are at a good payload, at a good, having a good ratings, the financial health, the claims payable ability, all these things needs to be taken care of. Apart from this, the service standards, because as Mr. Sireesh sir told correctly, there are a lot of to and fro's and a lot of information that requires. There is a lot of to and fro which, the insurance company might also require in terms of their NDAs, in terms of the documentation that they need to do. So we need to specify what exactly is required. And also as a startup, as a company, they should know which insurance company they need to act on. Because nowadays, private players are coming in as compared to others. So, the solvency ratios is what actually they need to focus on. And our markets is yet to see the claims yet. Okay, there are claims, but not in the India so far. So let us know how, we don't know how our markets are going to react on the claims part.
Thank you. Rachit, in your view, what could be the share of the space situational awareness in the global space economy? Because now we are hearing a lot about it. Commercially, now it has a lot of potential and all. So in the coming decade, what could be the share? And how do you see yourself, Leolab, that how it could help or put the value addition, especially for the Indian customers, Indian startups?
Absolutely. Great question. So I've been hearing a lot about what are the challenges as well, right?
And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Just 2 minutes for you.
Yes, no worries. Yes. So I was actually, I've been looking at the economy part, and I was surprised that current assessment by NSR and other organizations put SSA economy at $1.2 billion in comparison to $350 billion maybe the entire space economy, which was very surprising to me, to be honest. So I think economy-wise, it is still maturing because the applications are yet to be found out, right? Insurers are not using the environmental risk, and also I think that will grow. I'm positive. I think but it does form the foundation for everything, because if you do not understand the environment better, if you do not understand the risk of operation. I've worked with large constellations, and I still do with their operations team, and the risk that they are facing on a day-to-day basis, that decision of go and no-go for maneuvers, it's a very difficult one to take. And our system, our data is enabling it. And that is how I define SSA and SDA, right? There's the space situational awareness and space domain awareness. So I think that factors are going to stay. And of course, regarding your point on Indian startups, I think Indian space economy is growing, and a strong SSA infrastructure and information system is required here, and will only enable a safe and secure environment to operate in, because there's no point you launch a satellite and then it stops operating. That's very disheartening.
Yeah, thank you. Now, last question of this session to you. Do you have any suggestion or feedback to government, Indian regulators, to insurers, based on whatever experience as a user now you have got for your launch vehicles?
Yeah. So the first point is like, being a space startup from India or many other startups, most of us come from the total technical background, and they have quite a little exposure towards the insurance. So yeah, this is a good initiative, and more events such as this need to be brought up, because this considerably takes 15 or more than 15 to 20% of the cost, like whatever we are doing. So this is something very important element which need to be considered. And the second one is, for the technology demonstration launches, even might be spacecraft or launch vehicles. So insurers, the willingness of them coming forward is almost negligible. So this is something which need to be considered. Maybe government can come forward and procure some launches, or have some spacecrafts launched through them, which will give certain cushion, okay, or confidence for them to go for the first couple of launches, so that they can demonstrate the technology and go for the regular insurance. Yeah.
Thank you, Sireesh, for those feedback. And so with this, excuse me, we conclude this session. Of course, I would just summarize. We have had a very good discussion on the various aspects of risk management and liability in the space sector. We did discuss different types of insurances, the first-party insurance and the third-party insurance, the factors which affect the premiums, and what are the do's and don'ts while taking the insurance, and some of the very interesting aspects on space situation awareness by Dr. Bhatia, and of course the hands-on experience from Sireesh, Skyroot on the launch vehicle. So with that, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patient hearing. I'm seeing one raised hand for the question. Ma'am, if you can allow one question only.
We can have one question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
So do we have some sort of a ITU filing strategy to make sure that when we launch so many of these satellites, which of these orbits should we go for? which of these shouldn't be? That's the first question I have. InSpace has been associated with Project Netra and many other things. So we know where are the clusters, debris, and others. When they apply for a launch via InSpace, is there a way that you could go back to say, this is a risk index that you should try to avoid? Don't go to 350, don't go to 400, don't go, that's my suggestion. And also, is it possible based on the existing data sets that you have some sort of a risk index is given from the public data sets to say that this is what information is given, so before you launch, be wary of this. So that's some sort of index that could come up. Is that possible, sir?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Can you introduce yourself, please?
So my name is Vinay. I'm a co-founder of SkySurf startup.
So coming to your first question, the ITU filing. Of course, the ITU filing in space, as I told in my initial presentation also, we also have a role of enabler. And as enabler, we enable the ITU filing by the non-government entities in consultation and coordination with WPC, DOT. And of course, we provide the technical support and all the data, whatever is required from you for the first timers, we help them. We have worked out certain mechanism also with DOT to ease out the process of ITU filing. This is point one. And your two suggestions are very good. Of course, again, this is again a part of our enabler and promoter. If any specific requests come to us for providing the space situational awareness data required for the before launch or for any other satellite, I think we will be happy to share those data with the private parties, our non-government entities friends. So I think that is good suggestion, but it is always open. We are always open to help you out, anyone whomsoever wants any support from ISRO, or because this is all being maintained by ISRO now, right now, the Netra project. Yeah.
Countries like Rwanda filing for 1 lakh plus ITU filings, and suddenly we have only so much of a low Earth orbit available. So where are we supposed to be going? Unless we park ourselves with certain ITU filing strategy, then Indian companies will get left out in the, when we look at frequency, when we look at certain mileages, because then we are heading into a congested space. So that's the request I have with respect to that.
See, of course, how realistic it is. That's true that the Uganda has filed for these many satellites, but I don't think that would be practically possible, and because 1 or 2 countries are filing the legs of the satellite, you start filing the satellite. Here it is not like that, that you can, because especially in the LEO segment, if you see, unless you launch the satellite, anyway you don't have the rights and all, even if you make the filing. So, and I don't think that you will be able to, Uganda will be able to launch the so many satellites and all, and will be able to maintain. And this is all a different strategy and all that thing. In fact, ITU is itself is struggling now, as I was mentioning also, I think in the previous session, that the interference analysis and working out the coexistence mechanism between the GSO and NGSO for the same frequency spectrum and all. So this is a different altogether topic and different game.
Thank you.
So with that, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and for your patient listening. And thanks, I really thank all of you to joining us and for such a useful discussion.
Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen.